Hello there. What is going on, everybody? We're going to be talking about Imperial Assault today because Fantasy Flight just announced that this year's World Championships for Imperial Assault will be the final World Championships. Now, this may not come as too much of a surprise to a lot of people because Imperial Assault really hasn't seen any new product in a very long time, and the writing has sort of been on the wall that this game wasn't going to be getting any new product. And I think they've certainly been pretty upfront about that, but it's still, I think a lot of people have been holding out hope because there has been continuing, organized play for Imperial Assault, and it seems like that is now finally coming to an end. Now, I'm not particularly surprised about this. I actually think it's a little bit of a relief to have them finally come out and and say it, so it doesn't keep a lot of people guessing. But I understand a lot of people are probably upset about this. Now, I've got a couple of viewpoints on it, and there's certain things that we don't know. Like, we don't know if Imperial Assault is never going to have support again. We don't know that. They certainly haven't come out and said that. At least, point blank, they haven't said that. So there's always that chance that there might be more Imperial Assault. But at least for right now, it seems like that's probably not the case. So I wouldn't suggest you get your hopes up for any more Imperial Assault news, at least after this year. So you're going to have your world championships. You'll have another a final world champion, and I think that's probably where the game's continued news and support will probably end. However, just because that ends doesn't mean the game is dead. A lot of people like to throw around the term dead game or dying game. Imperial Assault has a lot of content. A lot of content. I believe it's over like 60 expansions in total. It's a ridiculous amount of content. And more content than most board games ever get. Way more, like 10 times more than most board games ever get. So that's an achievement unto itself. Now, I think the problem is basically business reasons that they, can't really go into. If you watched the Ask Me Anything with Andrew Navarro from Fantasy Flight, they talked a lot about Imperial Assault because there were questions. And, to their credit, Andrew was very upfront about, Imperial Assault. That they feel like it's a complete game at this point. I think some people might kind of disagree with some of the specifics of that, because I do think there are a couple of characters people still wanted to see get added, but it boils down to business reasons that they really can't go into. And I've certainly heard that it has a lot to do with Hasbro having the board game license from Lucasfilm, and even though Imperial Assault was marketed as a miniatures game, I think they kind of said, hey, no, it's a board game. Who knows, maybe there was some legal threatenings. We can speculate until we're blue in the face. But the point is, it seems like at the end of the day, it didn't work out too well for FFG, and so they decided, let's go in a different direction. I feel like that kind of is one of the things that led about the introduction of Star Wars Legion, and that's why Legion is in such a similar scale. I feel like that's the case. Again, I don't really know. It's all speculation here, but I feel like there's enough Star Wars miniatures that are still going to continue to come, that if you were playing Imperial Assault just for the miniatures' sake, then then you're still going to have something to scratch that itch. Now, if you were playing Imperial Assault for the campaign, well, there's plenty there too. There's also the digital campaign. There's also the digital support. It's unclear if there's going to be any more digital app stuff after this. I don't think there will be, though. So don't get your hopes. And if there is, then great. But I just don't expect that, and I wouldn't hang your hopes on, waiting for more support. I know they recently announced another playmat, and if I were guessing, I might guess that was probably the final, playmat that we'll see, but I could be wrong. There may have more stuff that's still in development that they're going to continue to develop, but I don't think that's the case, and I don't want to encourage false hope for that. But that's not really a cause to be too upset, because the game is great, and if you played it primarily for skirmish, I think that's where you're going to have a problem, because skirmish had a really cool competitive scene. I used to play a lot of skirmish. I'll tell you guys, I had bought everything for Imperial Assault, I think up until like the final wave, and I think I just didn't get that last round of expansions. And primarily, it was for skirmish. Now, I loved the idea of the campaign, but I just never got around to actually playing the campaign because I have a hard time committing to, campaigns. I have a really hard time committing to games where we're going to meet, once a week or twice a month or something like that, and work through this whole campaign, and it may take us 6 months to get through it or longer. I just have a hard time doing that because my time is stretched pretty thin between regular work, YouTube, and family. It's, and then trying to get, games in, for myself, because granted, I do a lot of game play for the channel, but sometimes I want to, play games for me as well. But, those are few and far between, and I don't get, a whole lot of dedicated time to run campaigns. And as anybody who's tried to have a campaign of any type of game will tell you, it's really a challenge because there's always somebody who can't make it. Always somebody who just isn't going to be able to show up or whatever. And, in some games, like we've been doing some, I have a group and we've been doing some role-playing games lately. And I feel like in RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons or the Star Wars RPG, Edge of the Empire, Force and Destiny, etc., it's a lot easier if somebody doesn't show up to kind of have the GM just say, oh, well, they were off on a side mission, and then just kind of work it into the narrative because you're kind of making up the rules as you go along. But in a game like Imperial Assault, it's a lot more structured. So, to have somebody not show up, it kind of prevents you. I mean, I haven't run it a whole lot. I ran a solo campaign with it, but I think about all the content I have for this game. It's a ton of content, and 30 years from now, I could, pull all this stuff out, run like, my kids or maybe my grandkids or whatever through an entire campaign. And it's going to, depending on how they do, it's going to, be different multiple times. There's so much gameplay here. Most games are never going to have as much gameplay as in here. But and I've got tons of games on my shelf that, only had like 2 or 3 expansions or one. I got Twilight Imperium 4th edition right here. There's no expansions for this game. Granted, there were expansions for Twilight Imperium that eventually led into 2nd edition, and expansions for that, which led into 3rd edition, and so on and so forth. But that's a whole different edition of the game. So maybe Twilight Imperium is a bad example. But I've got New Frontiers. That one doesn't have any expansions. Outer Rim doesn't have any expansions. Marvel Crisis Protocol. Well, that one does have some expansions, but I've got lots of board games all over that have like a fixed number of expansions and then stopped. Nemesis had its Kickstarter stuff and it stopped. Lords of Hellas had its Kickstarter stuff and it stopped. Lots of great board games. I'm just looking around me trying to get more good examples, but my point is there's a lot of not every game has to have infinite, endless expansions coming out for you to enjoy them. Now, I guess that's really my point, is there's nothing stopping you from continuing to enjoy this game. It's as simple as that. So hopefully, if you're an Imperial Assault player, you will continue to find ways to enjoy this. If not, maybe try something else too. Maybe someday they'll get all this licensing worked out and we'll see an Imperial Assault 2nd edition. Maybe they'll do that. Or maybe they'll just add on to Imperial Assault. I think it did kind of suffer from some power creep and some bad thing, like the core set didn't hold up, years later as more and more powerful units came out, and they eventually came out with some fixes, and that was cool. But just don't. I don't think the game would hurt for a 2nd edition. I think a 2nd edition would probably do it well if they were able to do that. And the thing is that they haven't come out and said it's done, it's dead. Like they've done that before for other things, like the Star Wars LCG. They came out for that one and said that it's no longer supported. I feel like they haven't said that here, so maybe there's always that chance that it could potentially happen again, but I don't think it's too likely. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. If it does, even if it does happen, it's probably not going to be anytime soon. Might be a very long time away. May never happen at all. So that is basically all I have to talk to you guys about today, and hopefully you guys are also aware of the 12 Days of Life Day giveaway that's going on right now. I have this huge giveaway going on right now. I'm going to be announcing winners on my YouTube videos, on Twitter, on Facebook, all over the place. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos if you would like to enter to win. And what are the prizes? There's some prizes. So you'll have to see. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I also want to thank my patrons on Patreon. You guys are amazing. So I want to thank you guys so much for your continued support. And as always, have a great day.